sort of wave.
That'll do it.
Thank you. Yeah, that always helps me feel more confident to hear that it's going to be recorded. You know how you feel when you listen to yourself on recording. Anyway, welcome everyone. And we have a total of 16 members. In addition to our liaisons, I'd like to introduce those of you probably know Skylar Buck, but Skylar and I met a couple weeks ago. He is with the state engineer's office and he will be a liaison whenever he can make it. We need to reintroduce Val J. Rigby because
It's got his mouthful.
right. Yep.
Yeah, I
we
bet
wait.
you I took a bite.
Yeah. Val J has been on our council since the beginning, representing ag, and now he is the Farm Bureau president. So
He's really representing it.
yeah,
He wasn't before, but now he is.
Yeah.
so that's great. That voice.
Yeah,
Thanks for keeping on coming.
That's what I told
You know,
him.
we had a conversation about conflict or anything, and Farm Bureau felt like this was the right,
Yeah.
you know, still doing the right job, so I'll probably,
Now you can get
Stay.
paid twice for coming.
yeah, like I missed that part before.
In the form of sandwiches and.
Sandwich is right, yeah, so.
Very good.
So I
Anyway,
appreciate it, thank you, I think it'll be good, hopefully we can keep the communication going.
right. I'm excited for this council. I know like getting this off the ground and some of our first meetings have kind of felt very paperworkish to me and maybe not as much of the meat and potatoes, but as we all know, meat and potatoes is on the agenda for water forever. So it's good to have you and have that camaraderie. Enjoyed a great tour of the Bear River Canal. That was kind of mind blowing coming from Cache Valley with a whole bunch of little canals to see the. And
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Carly is joining us online. She's from the Division of Water Resources. I had a Christie moment and fell as we were approaching the railroad track, and Carly, bless her heart, as we were crossing it, coming back to our cars, took a tumble. And I call that the solidarity fall. So we'll thank Carly for making that. Sorry, Carly, our secret's out.
I'm so embarrassed.
At least there's no video footage. Yay. Anyway,
Or we've done since then, we tell people, no, you be careful because,
yeah, the rocks are just due. I'm sure that was it, right, Trevor?
what was that?
Newly laid railroad rocks.
It was, I just read that line, so.
Mhm. Anyway, that's our welcome. We will turn over a little time to Nate and Trevor for updates. First, Nate, Oh, should we do introductions quickly?
Just really. quick.
Carl's telling me we should. He's the vice president. Vice chair, excuse me. Okay, I'm Christy Hansen with a small North Logan irrigation company. I'm our chair.
I'm Hollywood with the Langdon Group.
Conley Baldwin with Pacific Corp.
Skylar Buck, Water Rights.
And the Bill, the Nature Conservancy.
Mark Scadden, Bear Lake Watch.
Jeannie Simmons, Cache Water District.
Mark Hurd, High Park Canal, and Cache County Council.
Stephen Griffin, Newton Dam Farmers.
LJ Rigby, Utah Farm Bureau.
Okay, we'll go back to finish here and then we'll go back that way.
Jeffrey Larson, Bear River Water Conservancy District.
Carl Mackley, Bear River Water Conservancy District.
Nathan Downs, Cache Water District.
Tyler Pugsley, Brigham City Corporation.
Just beginning here, forestry fire statement. Well, it's the early division of wildlife resources.
Trevor Nelson, Bear River Canal Company.
Okay, our online folks, do you want to introduce them, Holly?
Yeah, I'll just call you guys up and introduce yourself. James, if you want to start. James, I guess.
Well, Jim Dorito, Trotter Limited.
Carly.
Carly Payne, Utah Division of Water Resources.
Brad.
Hi, I'm Brad Perry, the Northwestern Band of Shoshone Nation.
Matt.
Matt Yost with USU Extension.
Nick.
Nick Reithel with the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food.
And Mike.
Hey, everybody,
Mike Gates, I'm with the Bureau of Land Management, West Desert District. I'm the district manager down here in covering northern Utah.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Carl. We needed that. Okay, you're on, Nate.
Okay, we have the final draft of our economic study being internally reviewed right now, so hopefully by our January meeting, we should get big impact. Right now.
Okay.
You can't even give us a hint?
Looks good.
Millions? How many millions it's worth?
Hundreds of millions. for sure.
Okay,
Billions. Yeah,
with an S?
there's a lot of money in the Bear River water.
So I did not know that we were gonna have an online option. So what's your email and I'll send you this handout so you can display it on the screen.
Yeah, H Wood. At Langdon Group Inc.
So you said that it's gonna be ready when? Sorry, I missed that. I mean,
Hopefully by the end of the month. Get the end finalized
and then released
shortly there.
January.
Oh, our goal is to have it, I'm gonna publicly present it in the January meeting.
We're planning.
Yeah.
Assuming there's no major changes. after
No, I
that.
did a handout.
Okay. Trevor, take it away. Trevor said he emailing Holly would the handout we all have here so that you people online can see that.
Good heavens, Trevor.
Well, they like to pass a lot of water bills. Here. All right, you should see that coming over. Okay, so, let's see, there's 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13 bills that I know of. I'm sure people on this call can add probably 3 or 4 more to that, and we probably should expect 10 or 15 more beyond this. In the upcoming session, there's a lot of, I suspect there's going to be a drinking water bill. They've been kicking that around quite a bit in addition to this. And then some of these, so let's start with water related changes. Representative Snyder, that's number 5 on the list there. This is a large omnibus bill. It has a whole bunch of different pieces to it, but essentially anything that has to do with the funding of water has kind of been pushed into this bill. This bill is kind of intended to rework how we fund major water projects in the state of Utah. My understanding is that it's to mimic the UDOT approach to macro projects in the state. So when funding is available, because some sessions money is fairly plentiful, other sessions it's very tight, it'll give the legislature the ability to put, $100 million or $500 million into this large fund. And they don't have to create a new program in order, when they have years of plenty, to push these into these capital projects, these large macro projects. And so it's been very successful for UDOT. And essentially how they do it is everyone comes forward with their projects and says what they'd like to do. And then there's a group at the state that ranks them in order of most importance. And then they just pound through the list. If they have $50 million that year, they go until they run out of money. If they have 150 million, they go till they run out of money. And I think it'll be a fairly effective way of doing it, because instead of piecemealing things together, there's a one-stop shop to drop everything into. Now, the bill is still in it's still anticipated to have some significant edits. Because right now everyone competes against everyone. So my agricultural projects compete with Brigham City's culinary projects, and that's like comparing apples and oranges. It also competes with your wastewater, gray water, those type of projects, as well as water quality. So I think there may be some significant changes to this bill, but you'll want to watch this one. It will be high profile, and it's going to have a significant amount of money with it.
Do they define a macro project?
Well,
They do in the bill. And I don't know, I was gonna add 2 things. One, it won't be just macro, because it does talk about projects that are under $1 million, would kind of still get funded, but they would be in their own category. for really small projects. But that may change as we go through edits. And then the other big thing is it's not just a mechanism for the legislature to fund. So they're gonna, under its current draft, they're gonna front fund it. And then all water entities would have to assess a fee to their water companies and continue funding on a yearly basis in perpetuity. So it would always be funded by a water use fee, whether you're a sewer district, a culinary district, agricultural provider, you would have to assess a fee to all water users and then forward that to the state. And that's one that may change also, but right now that's a big chunk of this bill is.
Whether you benefit from that project or not, or is it?
Yeah, whether you benefit from that project, everyone would pay into this
Everyone is
fund.
state subsidized.
If you ever want funding from the state, you would have to pay into this fund. And you would also, before being eligible, you have to develop a long-term infrastructure funding plan for your entity.
What are they defining as long-term, 20 years?
Just basically a replacement policy for your system. So if you're gonna do that every 50 years, because you got a 50-year, it'll depend, I think, system by system. And when stuff was put in, what that will be.
So it's kind of a tax without talking about taxation.
It's a user fee, not tax. Yeah, so it is a way for us to become more like other states and tax without taxing. Cause that's how other states around us tax for their water projects. They just call it something else.
User
Yeah.
Right now, though, at least the last draft that I read, the only segment they're going to do it by culinary connections is where this fee is going to be. Now that, you may have seen a different draft than I saw, because there's been several of them, and this is a big bill, so
It's like
there's
40
a lot of
pages,
work
right?
going into it. What was that?
It's like 40 pages.
Yeah, it's 5,000 lines, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think.
So it's a lot to digest.
you gotta pass it to know what's in it.
Most of it is existing code that they're just
Yeah.
doing a few little amendments here and there. But at the state level, this planning group is supposed to create a plan for the state that's 20 and 30 years down the road. And then really to get in, as he discussed, you essentially have to have some kind of a master plan. The intention is that your large water conservancy districts and larger cities have more sophisticated long-term planning. And then your 10 farmer irrigation companies, it might be, we have these 3 projects we're thinking about in the next 20 years. And so I think there's some understanding and.
Yeah, and they're also talking about putting funding in it to help those little entities, whether it's a 10-person culinary system or a 10-person secondary system, to help them get a plan that's up to date with the state standard, what they're gonna require for this.
Kind of taking the same approach they did with the canal safety bill, where there was support from water resources behind it to help the little guys kind of make sure that they can do this, because the overall had a well-coordinated long-term plan. And we're gonna put this kind of money into water. We need to be like, okay, we know what we're doing. We're not piecemealing this together. It's all part and all coordinated. So, is there a comment online?
No, someone just joined.
Okay. All right. So we'll start back up the top. So the first one there is Bear Lake Preservation Bill that's been sponsored by our own Bear Lake Watch here. It's going through Senator Wilson. There on the right-hand column, you can see the different of the 3 bodies that usually review water bills. This is the ones that have heard it and those that have given favorable recommendations. If it doesn't have the plus next to it, that doesn't mean that they don't think it's a good idea. That just means they haven't taken a vote on it yet, if that makes sense. But the Bear Lake Preservation Bill essentially just goes through the mechanics of how Bear Lake functions and that we want to continue to preserve its functionality as it is now. And its intention was to help where it's regulated by both Idaho and Utah, to give the 2 managing bodies of the lake in the 2 states identical code so that they can come up with joint management plans that match one another and they can reach macro goals that are that make sense. And so the task force approved, sent that on with a favorable recommendation, and the Water Development Commission has heard that but not taken a vote on it yet.
Yeah, Idaho passed a similar
bill last year.
Okay.
And so our goal has been 2 states, 1 goal. So, that's really hard at Bear Lake. But anyway, Idaho passed a similar legislation last year. So
Okay.
this copies that goal. So that-
And just with this list of bills, just keep in mind, this is what I know of, and this is how I understood it. Is it 100% correct? Probably not. And is it all inclusive? Probably not, but at least it gives you an idea of what to expect, at least what we know is coming at this point. The riparian corridor amendments by Benyon, this is more to do with making sure we preserve the riparian benefits along river systems and streams. I haven't heard anything on this bill yet because she was supposed to present at the task force, but did not, wasn't able to make it that day. So we'll probably learn a little bit more about this, but that's the purpose of the bill, is for the preservation of the benefits of riparian wetlands and things. The next is water efficiency landscape requirements. This is Owens. This is a recycle of last year's bill on essentially setting up some requirements, at least as I understand it, of new builds and what they would have, vegetation, square footage wise, those type of things. This one is constantly changing, so I'm not going to go into any more details on that, but he is working again on that kind of line of thinking.
Is there a couple of those?
And they'll probably merge together into a
Okay.
single bill.
The main one is only for government buildings.
Oh.
No government facility.
And that one's a little bit further down.
And that's Owens or no?
Owens,
that's not-
yeah.
He's got.
Okay.
Water rights publication amendments. This is Briscoe. This was encouraged by the state engineer, just helps her be able to more quickly respond and her to respond to, well, you can go out and get digital confirmation of publication in the public source, so in the newspapers. It'll speed up the water rights processing by like 90 days or something like that, or
It can vary. I think it's like 14 days or something. It just depends, because every newspaper's different. How quick.
No, it's really
No, that's like our goal is to get it out.
You
in
have
90
to
days.
commit now.
Tell us.
Skylar said.
Yeah, and then-
Skylar said, we heard it. All right, throw me under the bus. I'm used to it.
Yeah, and then we went over water related changes. So down to the Senator Sandel bill, the saved water. So this is essentially the bill that takes ag optimization and removes it from its own section and plugs it into the existing change application process. There's some really unique things that they're attempting to do with this. And I think it's good. This is just my opinion. I think it's good. They're taking the steps in the right direction, but I think we're gonna have some growing pains along the way. I think it's gonna be a little bit more complicated than has originally been advertised, but we've got to start somewhere. Would you add anything else to that?
No.
Okay.
I guess I would just
I
say
don't want to touch it.
there were some concerns the way it was written and the language, and so this was kind of conveyed to me as kind of cleaning that up and making sure that the intent is very clearly explained. And so there was kind of a small working group with the state engineer and a few water right attorneys that were kind of focusing on this. So I'm hopeful that it'll come out a little bit better, even though the initial legislation in my mind, since they put it through a change application process, I have enough faith in the state engineer that she wouldn't like approve anything that's really wacky. So in my mind, it was already not horrible, but I think they're gonna refine it. Some people thought it was horrible. Well, I thought it was not.
It puts the definition of saved water as an eligible use in there, so it does put that into there.
Maybe this is a question.
And this is a long bill. The reason is because you are pulling sections of code from all over the place. So just know I had a migraine after that.
I sit in those weekly meetings.
But it'll be kind of complicated. So take some good notes as you go through it. That'll help you get the whole, how it all connects together, because
Sort of like.
they had to piece it all into the existing code. That was a
It is
big problem.
definitely a step, one step better than what we had, and it will have some. As those first applications come through, I think we'll realize that there's probably something that was missed, and then
That makes
come back
sense.
potentially next year, but How is it any different than an in-stream flow?
Because if they can show saved depletions, then
You can use it for anything.
use that for something else.
Okay,
They can move depletions.
okay. Diversions can only be moved for
So
non-depletable.
they're looking, they're
uses,
looking
like
at,
it says.
yeah, diversions would only
defines
be saved till the next diverter. Like that would be the only guarantee. but
How do you prove
depletions-
that? That's the next. And to what level do you have to prove that? That's where the change application
gonna be
will
fun.
probably get denied on a lot of them.
I mean, I think.
So if I-
Yeah.
If I figure out a way to do that, I'm gonna start making all this money consulting to public people. I know, we can do this.
Has to stand up in court.
Yeah,
Most of them are not saving water.
yeah.
Most of them are probably increasing depletions, so we'll leave it at that.
Very interesting. Shareholder amendment.
Okay, so water shareholder amendments, this is a bill from Senator Sandel. This has to do with the time that a canal company has to respond when a shareholder files a shareholder change application. This bill is just putting it back to the way it was. There was a 11th hour bill that kind of got, well, section of Senate Bill 33 last year that just kind of got hammered through so that the bill would pass. And Senator Sandel has really worked with the two sides of the discussion quite a bit on this, but the long and the short was he decided that maybe how it was the most fair, so he's taken it back to the way that it was. The next one, water measuring and accounting amendments. This one's really simple. It just adds telemetry as one of the things that the state encourages or wants to plan for. Very simple amendment. Produced water with Representative Lund. This has to do with the water that they get when they pull up petroleum products and gas. So like in the Uinta Basin, for every 3 barrels of crude oil you pull up, you get 5 barrels of salt water. And in the past, this has never had any sort of water right. And this just formalizes that understanding that the oil companies, since that's not part of the natural water system and isn't connected to the surface or well water, it can be brought up, used for fracking or for like any kind of drilling. And then it has to be disposed of because it's considered a hazardous material through injection wells. So they pulled it up and they find a different hole and shove it back down. And this formalizes that they can trade it amongst themselves, but it cannot essentially re-enter the natural water cycle. It's got to go back in the ground when it's done. Is that a fair?
You can't
Can they
truck it
still
over to the
evaporate it or
Great Salt
no?
Lake.
Yeah, they can evaporate it.
Yeah.
It's considered to not, it's
It's
not
not
water.
usable.
It doesn't
water.
exist.
Not of
yeah,
good
usable
quality.
water.
And so it just formalizes that understanding so that production water is. Well, yeah.
Produced water, yeah.
Interesting.
Water usage by schools, this is Ballard. This is essentially a bill that is very closely to what Owens is doing in that, we want to have water efficient landscapes at schools, like big users of water. The next one is, Utah Waterways Amendments by Owens. So Utah Waterways is the private governmental partnership that's supposed to help bring money in to support water interests in the state, particularly the Great Salt Lake. My understanding is their hope is that this is the way the private sector could donate to funding things to help with the Great Salt Lake, but it has an educational component in the legislation as well. So this formalizes that and essentially adds back into the curriculum the water module for, I can't remember what grade it is.
4th grade, it used to be.
Yeah, so essentially, I don't know what grade they're gonna have it do now, but essentially our kids will be taught about the water cycle and hopefully understand water a little bit better. And so it directs this Utah Waterways to
Is there an
oversee that.
adult session?
It's a long-term plan.
That's the kids' homework.
Yes.
There you go.
Teach mom and dad.
Kind
Kinda like driver's ed.
Required to attend that.
And then this water usage amendment is tied to the efficient landscape. These two kind of go hand in hand. I'd have to pull the two bills up again to remember which kind of is which, but it is about optimizing the water use in the residential setting. The last one that I have is the Columbia River Compact Bill. They technically, well, it's a section of code that no longer needs to be there because only one other state ratified, well, two other states ratified it, one removed its approval. And they don't use it, so we don't really need to designate someone as the Columbia River Compact representative because there is no Columbia River Compact. And so it's a cleanup bill. Would you add anything else to that, Conley?
I don't know anything about it anyway. Yeah.
Pretty good summary.
That sounds great. I mean, having Utah and the Columbia River in the same sentence seems kind of silly.
The water usage one is this one where if you're in the Great Salt Lake Basin, you can't water your grass before April 1st or after October 1st.
Well, my recollection is it limits turf to 7,500 square feet.
Yeah, it has some limitations in there too, but the big one he wanted to get, was you couldn't water outside of those windows, which I said, that's great for us up here.
But not,
No one waters before October, long in October, in April or that late in the year. So it was more of a feel-good bill than actually doing it
it was October 1st,
in April 1st.
right?
So, does anyone else have any other bills they'd add to this list?
Give us a week or two.
I'm sorry, I don't have any bill numbers for you. I couldn't find any place where
I don't think
they've numbered them yet.
Yeah. I don't think
So-
they assigned us yet.
Well, thank you. That's.
Yeah. That's a lot more than,
And then I'll update this, when they do get bill numbers, and if I have any new ones, I'll send it out to the group too.
great. Thank you, Trevor. Awesome. Okay, our administrative business section of the agenda begins, which is so much fun. I made some calls between our last meeting and this meeting, and I was attending, first of all, I sent out the minutes. We have been keeping minutes and posting minutes, but we have not been approving minutes. And so, first thing we need to do is take a motion council meeting, Watershed council meeting.
They attached to this,
They were attached to a month ago, the email that went out.
I so moved.
I second it.
Okay, moved by Jeannie, seconded by Conley. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the September 26th Bear River Watershed Council meeting.
Also moved.
Jeannie moves.
I'll second it.
I got a good thing going. Thank you, Connolly, for the second. All those in favor, including people online, which I'm sorry, I have a tendency to forget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll pause extra long in case there's online.
But they can just thumbs up and thumbs down. Very, very handy for that.
Okay, hearing none, that also passes. Before we get to 6 and 7, because this was something that I heard in the last Utah Watersheds Council meeting that kind of didn't jive with what I thought. So I talked to Warren Peterson, who is kind of behind the Watershed Council's idea and generation. Our bylaws say that we must have a quorum of our council members present to conduct business or hold a meeting, which for the 20 of us there now are, that basically means 11. We have 16 today, so we're great. But I thought once we had a quorum, if we had a majority vote, that would pass a motion, but that's incorrect. Our bylaws state, yes, and this is what came out in the Utah Watersheds Council meeting that kind of blew my mind. Specifically, the template they gave us that we adopted says, an action of the local council must be approved by no less than a majority of the council, period. So if we only have 11 people here, we have to have a unanimous vote for a motion to be officially passed.
Have we changed that?
We can, but I asked Warren about it, like what was the rationale behind that? And he said, what can happen is, say you have a city council of like 5 people and 2 people are absent. So a majority still there, and something comes up before the three that are there, 2 are in favor and 1's against. They've actually passed something that only 2 of the 5, a minority.
Yeah, but that happens all the time.
Right, but the feeling was for watershed councils where we're a conversation clearing. And so anything that. I like short meetings too, Mark. The feeling was that any motion, official motion of the council, especially as it applies to direction to the state watersheds council, should be a majority. And I said, well, does that mean I have to go back to all the people that were absent and like canvass a vote in retrospect? And he said, no, just it would be a discussion to bring up another time if you don't have a majority of the council approve a motion. Thoughts? I mean, I'm with Eugene, that I thought it was the traditional sense of a quorum, pass motions, but.
Well, you know, the concept of this was very advisory, help, you know, it was not legislative at all.
Right.
And it's not funding oriented at all.
We have none, yep.
Today.
Yeah.
And
See that as today, because they've already talked to changing both those going forward, so I like this way, because it does protect us long term. Because I would be surprised if in the next, let's say decade, it'll probably be shorter, we have both of those authorities. Which then.
Yeah.
You don't want a minority making those big, potentially big water decisions.
well,
So if only the Box Elder guy showed up, because we had that with cash can on even go, we're like, what, you have to pass that.
Did you have something to add?
I just want some clarification. You said that they have to be present, the online people can't vote?
Oh, no, online
They can.
people,
Okay.
yeah,
Just,
but like, as far as if we had someone who, let's see, Mike Dunphy, he has a training that he's in right now, can't be here physically or virtually. Like, would I have to canvass him for the votes we made? No. Like the business of the meeting happens at the meeting or virtually. Anyway, and that's why number
It
9.
also gives us an incentive to make sure we're getting everyone to meetings.
Yes, right, that too, right? That's why initially I didn't want proxies, because I wanted people at meetings, and we only have like. Our bylaws say 4, I want to change that to 3, but. You know, like, exactly. If we're going to make these decisions and talk about these important issues, then let's have people here. And if we can't come to a consensus, maybe it's not something. Oh, I almost said something political. But,
This group was meant to take a position on.
right,
You got
but
Dale
The
Wise
task force does the same thing, right? They're not really.
legislative,
They give recommendations, and
Yes.
sometimes there'll be a bill they don't vote on because. They don't,
there's not a
either there's
consensus.
not enough information or not a consensus.
Yeah, right, and that's kind of similar to what we'd be doing. I don't know, it was just. I love the nitty gritty details of bylaws, but I figured you guys probably hadn't gotten that far into it, and I wanted you to know, as it's written, that's how it's written right now, so. Just, if you would like to make a motion for that to change, that would be a future meeting, because we would need to have that on the agenda for the meeting.
thank you.
Okay, all right.
One thing on that, with this, the large Snyder bill I was talking to you about, there was discussion of this group. Being the group that essentially gives the feedback to the state watershed council. And that council advises the group that does make the rankings. And so that could potentially be really good for your projects, really bad for your projects. I guess it's a really good reason why you ought to get along with everyone, but our role could potentially change if we were asked to participate or give feedback on the ranking for
Interesting.
localized projects.
For the state? Or for the space?
You,
So
you
we
would
would
review
do
them
it.
in your basin and send them to the
Oh,
state
okay.
level, and the state would move them.
Hmm.
There's a lot of discussion on if that's a good route.
Mhm.
if they were here, they would see it with, this is a very good body of people.
If you have a really contentious project that still needs to be done. That's what like Weaver Basin was concerned about when the legislation was originally launched, is that everybody turned against them. This is another avenue to torpedo something as critical as a siphon or something like that. And so it has its pros and its cons.
Good, thank you for that information, Trevor. Okay, so now we will jump back to 6. So we originally had 21 members on our board, and Laura Gell, who was with the Bear River Land Conservancy, resigned. That position stayed open. She was also our secretary, so that office is also open. I just wanted to make you aware that when the Great Salt Lake Council, Watershed Council is eventually formed, the Watershed Councils Act says that they will appoint a member from their council to our council, and they will be a full council member, but the maximum council members we can have is 21. So, Sean Milne just entered the room. Hi, Sean.
Hey,
You just, we are on,
We're just about putting you as our secretary.
Here's the
yeah.
next.
I actually spoke with Sean, but prior to this meeting about, because he works for the Bear River Land Conservancy now, kind of. Did you take Laura Gell position?
Well, yeah, I took a position that was previously occupied by her. I don't think I'm nearly as good as she was for that. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, not Sean. Anyway, my feeling is, I know when I went down to the state Watershed Council meeting with our original 21 people, they were concerned that we had a lot of governmental, like city council, county council, because we have, anyway, those representatives seemed kind of high to them, and also our ag representatives seemed high to them. And every 2 years, our positions come up for, some of us go 4 initially and 2, but every 2 years we'll be rotating through our positions. So I was thinking that might be since we need a secretary and nobody has stepped forward, but Sean has agreed to be secretary if we appoint him to our Bear River Watershed Council.
But if we appoint him, then we don't have space for someone from the Great Salt Lake.
Right,
Council.
but that's not an entity.
Yeah.
We don't
Hey,
have to make that
Andy,
decision yet.
how close are they to being an approved watershed council?
Great Salt Lake,
Yeah,
that's who you talk to.
Not gonna be.
Prognosticate. Tell us.
anyway, so this is our discussion period. Phil, not
Is it a
Phil.
possibility that someone who's already on our council could be a part of that council instead of the other way around?
We will do that. Trevor, we elected him as, when we elected Nate to be our state.
He
Right.
could be the same representative. He would probably be their representative back.
We could hope that, right?
I think, so it wouldn't matter.
But I would think that's the way that would theoretically work, because they wanted.
You would think
people-
so, but the wording doesn't make that so.
The wording makes it so that the Great Salt Lake Advisory Council is a separate entity that is not related to any of the other watershed.
The Great
councils.
Salt Lake Watershed Council is made up of an appointee from each of the watersheds,
Right.
but they also will have their own makeup of just like this council.
Well,
Right.
that sounds like odd wording, because if you have a person from every watershed council on the advisory board, that person should be the person that then is relaying the information from the different watershed councils. You shouldn't have to have another person.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think-
Is that the understanding with that wording in the bill? I don't know.
Yes, again,
Okay,
one representative to Great Salt Lake Council, one representative to the state council.
and
No
then,
need
but,
for a return, that person is the.
but the Watershed Council Act says that the Great Salt Lake Council can appoint a representative from their council to each of the watershed councils.
They
And
will likely not.
okay, Guys, thank you.
I make a motion, we accept Sean as a new member to replace Laura and also put him in as a second.
Oh, let's do one at a time.
Round.
I would second that motion.
Yeah.
Okay, we are addressing both 6 and 7 at the same time. There has been a motion made to appoint Sean to our Watershed Council and also fill the officer position of secretary. Is there any discussion?
Thank you.
We're gonna be the secretary.
Chrissy is very.
That was punitive.
Persuasive.
Thumb screws, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Anybody from online?
Any discussion from online? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed, say nay. Did I hear something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not officially at, sorry, Sean. Ooh, this was genius, right? Yeah, I like that. Okay, that motion passes, so 6 and 7. We've discussed 8. Number 9. I do not love meetings in December. And I also do not love meetings that feel like we have to have a meeting because there are 4 minimum meetings that we have to have. So I looked up the Watershed Act. They only have to have 2 minimum at the state, and they have 4 they have 1 quarterly. But I felt like, given that our watershed is the most busy in the summer, I mean, nobody wanted a meeting until October, which was the last of a quarter, and then here we are. I felt like 3 minimum, whether that was 1 prior to legislative session, like, or during,
Yeah, I think during would be important. Very
okay,
important.
and then 1 in like end of April, kind of like we did last time, before the season starts for some. And then after the season.
And so if we were to adopt 3 instead of 4, there's nothing to say that we couldn't. It's the minimum. We needed to hold one in the summertime or
Right,
really
exactly.
interest, we can do that.
Just, I want to,
Christie,
thoughts on that.
emphasize again, I understand irrigation season, I understand the busyness. This council needs to get out on the ground and see the resource. These meetings are great, they are insufficient by themselves in the first year. So we had a tour of the Bear River Canal Company, we had half a dozen, if that. So that needs to happen, and we've tried to encourage and tried to say this would be a good idea, but it really needs to happen.
But there were some of us that went on that with the Bear River Commission.
True.
So.
True, and we can do that. We talked about that last time about combining things that are already happening. We just need to make sure that we designate that as a council activity as well.
Well,
So we can create our own.
So what I was just saying by that was that you had better attendance than just a half dozen.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because you had people who had
Yes.
already participated earlier in the year
Right.
on the
Good.
same basic tour.
Good point. Good point. So there's lots to look at in the basin from Bear Lake to Great Salt Lake.
Right.
So I'm
Do
just
we-
saying, let's do that.
Do we know what the commission's doing this year? Are they going back to Idaho?
Yeah, Oneida to
should
state
go
line,
back.
is Oneida to state line?
I think so.
In
Well,
May.
there was discussion, maybe it wouldn't make it all the way to state line
Well,
from there.
Oh, okay, well,
It is gonna start on
the water quality
Yeah.
folks always have something good to dig in and maybe that we can look at that
Right.
is there.
Yeah, I don't want to miss that section.
Backstory.
Yeah, yeah.
What I really want to do is go back and do the first, I missed the first section.
Few more years.
The headwaters, the
Yeah.
upper headwaters, okay.
I
We,
missed
we-
that.
yeah, we cycle back through, yeah.
Cause I was like.
We'll get
oh,
there.
So, the other entities that do stuff on the Bear, so obviously Trevor, what was the, drive for the initial field trip? I can't remember who initiated it.
Which one?
The one that you invited us on. because that you already had planned?
So there were some legislators that were coming out to look, wanted to see ag optimization on the ground.
Mm.
There were, water law students and high school students that wanted to be, well, the water law students wanted to see an irrigation company. And then the high school students wanted to understand the agricultural component of the Great Salt Lake story. So those were kind of the impetus for why we were already doing what we were doing. We are not gonna do as many tours next year as we did this year.
Okay.
Cause you wanna get some work done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So,
we do want in the middle of summer.
so there's the working group meetings this week. Like there's the Cache County Working Group meeting, there's a Rich County next week, or there's the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
Rich County and then,
Local
Southern.
watershed,
Yeah.
local watershed.
So, we could see, I mean, I'm hoping to get to all of them. I don't know if I can go to Barcelona. But, we could ask to be on the agenda and ask if they're planning on field trips, right? Any of their groups, so that we can get those sections. I mean, that's just one way to see what other groups are doing.
Yeah, we do a tour in Cache every year, the water district does
That's right.
a tour, different projects.
Bing, bing,
If
bing,
we got too
we
big
got
a
it.
group, we probably couldn't get in things like Cairo Dam, but
So what
Yeah,
is
so
the, is the point of us going out
Yeah.
into the field just to better understand the water resources and
yeah.
Yeah.
basically.
water
And
conveyance?
As a group to better understand the resources and the issues within the basin. And then ultimately to prioritize kind of where you want to put your efforts.
Which if we do get to the point of where we're ranking or giving recommendations on project, having a better understanding of the basin is gonna be
Right.
very critical in this group.
Right.
It currently probably doesn't have the capacity and understanding to make those kind of decisions.
If each of you, when you're in the know about a tour that would be open for our membership, would let me know, I can be the clearinghouse of that information to you all. I feel like just kind of on my own, I'm not the most in the know water person on this council. I'm probably the least. So the more that you can feed that to me, the better I can get that message out.
I have a suggestion.
Mhm.
Because we know Nate does a tour. Why don't we take him up on it?
Yeah.
And, you're welcome. And it can be in conjunction with your other one or not. I don't know how, if that's gonna be too difficult. And then, but investigate, for the next year, with these other groups and, find the other opportunities that we can have.
But I also think it's important, like we do the northern.
Yeah, so you can bring
The
up
water
the Northern
conference.
Utah Water Conference,
We
you can
do.
put it on your calendars for March 26th.
Yeah, we do that every year, and I think that brings a lot of issues forward that are regionally specific.
Okay.
I agree.
Where's that at?
Cache Event Center there.
Yeah.
Fair
Okay.
Park.
You don't wanna miss it. It's pretty fantastic.
And
Do
they
you have a
always
date
get
for that
really
yet?
good food.
March 26th.
Thank you.
When is water users in St. George?
The 18th, 19th, 20th, whatever that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is, week before the 26th.
But you do have the issue that all of
18,
these
20,
things
19,
cost
20.
money.
Mhm. Yeah, and we don't have
Except for
funding.
The Northern Utah Water Conference.
Well,
Costs a little bit.
It costs a little bit. But it's not like Utah
we
Water
charging
Users or something like that.
It doesn't cost to go to, but it costs you and me.
Yeah, I know. I know that.
Okay.
Well, so it is free.
We'll get some bigger sponsors. We know the Farm Bureau president now.
You're too late. I've already had one.
I love it. Okay, yeah, that's very good. Those will be in our minutes, but I will put an email out to everyone so that they're aware of the Northern Utah Water Conference.
Well, I'm really intrigued with anything that the Farm Bureau is doing in any one of the watersheds, right? Because obviously you have the whole state. But if you guys plan anything and that it would be appropriate for us to tag along.
Yeah.
We've got one on the 19th that I'll understand bringing the whole state together, but kind of a small group trying to understand So I'll know a little more after this coming one.
Baptism by fire.
Yeah,
Yeah, fire hose.
fire hose.
Okay, very good. So. Does anyone want to make a motion on number 9?
So, question though,
Uh-huh.
so Conley has been involved with the Bear, the compact tour for years and years, and it seems like they always end up getting pushed to the fall, well, the late summer, because there's just a lot going on during the dead heat of the summer, and then in a wet year, you never know if you're gonna have a wet year, and so the springtime is always super busy. I mean, I think that tour being sometime in late August, early September still lets us see things when they're green and when water is moving. And, you know, understanding the problems and the situations. But I would caution against doing anything in the middle of the summer. There's also just the normal problem that people have, and you really can't do anything in the month of July because everybody's got family reunions and vacations.
Our little one we've done has always been in late April or early May. Everyone can't make it, right, because you're starting farming then, and it's tough to get a time that gets everybody.
Okay.
But we could rotate around times too, and do different ones different times of the year. But I think the commission one this year is May,
I don't remember.
like
I
that.
don't think they said it
That's
last.
what he said he was hoping for.
Yeah, the last
Maybe-
time it was kind of floating until 2 weeks
Yeah,
before.
right before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Usually before that, they were always kind of set in stone 6 months at least in advance.
Yeah.
But,
Pandemics ruined everything.
yeah, so.
Just kidding. I do have a comment. I really like the option of having more. And I think potentially, you know, things like what the integrated plan that's coming up, there are a lot of studies that are going on that are probably going to inform us. And so I don't know how to handle that type of information and possibly exchange, like if you want written comments or not, from our group. And we need to decide if we are going to be that type of a group, that we are going to read through some of this really heavy stuff and then give comments back based upon what we feel our mission is. And so that's one of the things that it's kind of a little overwhelming because so much information is coming out of the integrated plan. Something to think about as far as if we should, you know, conscientiously have little subcommittees instead of everybody feel like they have.
And that's a possibility that's within our purview for sure.
But the comments back on some of these things are timely. And so if we don't meet and we have to vote on our comments, then we'd have a missed opportunity. How important that is, I honestly don't know. I mean, because some of this stuff is so technical, you know, we can probably go, good job, you know, or something, or not, you know, it just depends on what our opinion is. So I just see that there's a lot coming down in the next couple of years that we probably just need to be aware of and make a conscientious decision on whether or not we want to be vocal.
Well, our basin is the one that's most likely to be most negatively impacted by the results of the integrated plan because we are perceived as being a water-rich basin. And so I would strongly recommend, like, even if we decide we move as a base value to 3 meetings a year and a tour, I do think that you as a member should anticipate that we're going to be having 5, 6, 7 meetings a year while the integrated plan is being done, because they may be very close together too. They may release a plan or they release a segment and we meet every other week for a month and a half, 2 months, and then we don't meet for another quarter or that length of time. But it's going to be imperative to protect our interests and make sure that we participate in the integrated plan. So,
And Trevor, so one of my questions is then, so I'm following it with my job, right? I'm with the Nature Conservancy. We're following the integrated plan because we're very interested in the outcome, and not that we have much influence, in that plan, but I'll be reading it and things like that. And it sounds like you will be too. So I just wonder if there's just a smaller group of us that could inform the rest of the group so that they don't feel.
That'd be super great. For someone like me. Just saying.
Well, I think quality is trumps quantity.
Right,
You know,
same,
just-
so that like
I think
but
that's what I'm saying.
if the group of people who understand and can read the integrated plan and
Or parts of
interpret
it, you know.
how it will affect our watershed, so that not all of us have to read. Not all of us know the science behind it.
Well, I mean,
You
it's
know.
just a lot of engineering, so it's like.
Right,
Not
exactly.
everybody's gonna understand, but.
I don't know, I still think, like, the entire group needs input on, you know, what will affect our watershed, but,
And like Trevor said, if we do need to have more meetings, we could have virtual meetings where.
right, I
we
was
hop
thinking
on for an
virtual.
hour and we kind of give the rundown and what do you think and it can be. Informative and expedited and concise
Absolutely.
if we need to, but yeah, having a kind of a subcommittee of folks that, because I'm already on the steering committee, so there's people that are already involved, and so
Okay.
those that already are spending the time, it's not that much more to hop on and say, hey, there's this thing, and
Perfect,
this thing and that thing, and what do you think?
and inform all of us.
Then you guys can, everybody else can chime in if they want. I'm thinking,
I'm happy to come any old time, if you want an update on
All
what's going
right.
on, so
Yay.
don't hesitate.
Okay, very good.
It's a very old.
Table
Well-
9, past 9.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we change our organizing document to state that the minimum number of meetings annually be 3
Okay,
required.
Well, and just read the rest.
That's why it says minimum. It's just.
so if we look at the back sheet of our agenda, meetings shall be held 3 times per year or per annum. Just
Or
like-
more frequently, yeah.
Right. So meetings shall be held 3 times per annum or more frequently as determined. And I don't understand why I get to decide that, but there you have it. It was already there.
Because you're in charge of putting all that stuff out on the website that we're having a public meeting and all that. Nate does it.
Tell them when we're having. a
One of the
meeting,
most
what's gonna be on the
powerful-
agenda. You set the agenda.
That's true.
One
Okay, do we have a second on the
Wait, Trevor
motion?
has something.
Oh, go ahead, Trevor.
One of the most powerful things about the chairman of a group is that you determine if the magnitude merits the meeting. And so I have no problems with the proposed amendment, but I think we should next say that we direct her to not, or to have additional meetings. I think the digital idea is a great idea because we can have our 3 main, where we get all together and get to know each other.
Have
But then the
food.
rest of the time, we can just have work meetings and only work if we need to work.
Yep, I like that. Very, very good. Is there a,
Madam Chair, can I ask a nuanced difference? Is it implied then, Trevor, that the 3 are always in person, or might 1 or 2 of those
no,
even be virtual?
there's a section of the bylaws that just for meetings, and they can be virtual or in person or a combination of the 2.
Thank you.
And you notify the chair if you want a virtual option.
Otherwise, it's assumed that it's in person.
Yes.
Or the chair sets it up as a virtual meeting.
Or that.
Eating virtual snacks.
That means you have whatever's at your house, right? At
Yeah.
your office.
Right.
Nobody has seconded my motion.
Nobody has. I'm
Maybe
still
it's a
waiting.
Good motion.
I'm a little, confused on the, I mean, Trevor's trying to warn us here, more meetings and, why worry about only having 4 if it sounds like we're gonna probably have more than, or only having 3.
That's
'cause
true.
It sounds like we're probably gonna have more than 4.
And it's not just having 3. Right now, it's quarterly.
Yeah,
so it's
quarterly.
Yeah,
specified that
right, exactly. And that was like,
Then quarterly, and that,
That
Give
misses
us more
quarterly.
flexibility.
Cause
Okay.
we might wanna have three, like January, February, March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we won't need another one till October.
Yeah, so like
That's why
I,
you can't do
We
that.
could have
Okay.
said 4 per year instead of quarterly. It's
the state, I just use them as kind of the template and theirs says 2. And they hold 4. So I was like, okay, like I hate December meetings with a passion. So,
I almost think our December one, it's either December or the first week of January.
okay,
Because I think you need one before the session starts to discuss legislation.
All that or.
Not all
First
year,
week
but-
of the session's a good time too.
Yeah, or at the very
Flush
start,
those out.
not, you don't have time to.
so my,
Because like
If you wanna change the
my-
direction of bill, go in the middle of the session.
yeah,
Too late.
my
Mhm.
motion is dead.
So you
okay,
wanna try and get
Oh,
out
there's
the
a second
quarterly
over here.
thing as
yeah,
There was a
much as
second.
anything.
should,
Don't think so.
I did
So-
second it, but then we.
you did?
Yeah.
Okay, and
What
now
if
we're
we
just
say-
Now we have to take
discussing.
a-
What if we say meetings shall be held in times per year?
Either way is.
Either way, it's there
It's
or
almost
more
semantic.
frequently, yeah,
Yeah, it's just semantics.
I,
The quarterly,
I just didn't like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think
well,
so.
I think it's important, kind of.
Okay,
I understand the flexibility and we want the support, but the quarterly is. That's very purposeful language there to get regular. Don't leave a huge gap during the middle of the year, even though that's what we're saying we want to do.
okay, should we
So I think, you know,
leave
if,
it as is?
well, if we don't intend to have a meeting
I don't know.
in the summer, we have to change it.
That's what we're discussing.
Right.
But if we did January, March, June. January, March, January, April, what? It'd be January, March,
No, January, April, September. Give the first 3 quarters.
So technically, we did not, but this is our first year.
Maybe we should, I'm gonna withdraw my, well, I don't know that I can now.
Cause it's
It's
second.
Second, yeah. Can always pull the motion.
well, if your seconder agrees to withdraw, you
withdraw,
can
second.
withdraw.
Okay, thanks, Trevor. I mean, thank you, Nate.
Maybe let's just figure that out next time we table it.
I am not up on the Robert's Rules of Orders when you have a motion without a second, but does it just draw?
If,
Yeah, it's
there- if the seconder withdraws their second, then the person who gives the motion can withdraw their motion. Or you can let it stand and then you have to vote it down and start over.
Do you have to withdraw your motion?
If Nate,
Nate withdrew
I
his
do, I
second
will
and
withdraw.
Carl is withdrawing his motion. Okay, and 9 has seen no change. 10,
But you can bring it up again.
yes. If
Before.
I will let one
before
of
next
you
December.
bring it up. Next,
I
again,
don't feel like that wasn't a good discussion. That was good.
okay.
No, I agree.
Okay, last one, given that we have to have a majority of council members, I didn't know if we wanted to make it easier to appoint proxies that can vote. For instance, the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge, are they a liaison? Okay. But there are some times when someone on our council might have an extended illness or a family problem that they would like to appoint a proxy to. And I did not understand how that majority versus a quorum impacts the council. I don't know if you would like to change and allow proxies, but right now our bylaws say that we don't allow it. And
I don't want to interrupt the conversation, but I do realize that, our time.
oh, yeah,
Is, fast running out, and I wonder if we could table this particular discussion so that we can have a presentation, by Laura. I know that could interfere with our next meeting because people might need to have proxies, but we,
Call an option.
we have a call-in option, so.
Okay.
Is that okay? I mean,
Yep, that's
I
great.
do think we want to talk about it, but I just do want to give time to the presenter.
Okay.
She did rush up here.
Are you making a motion to table?
I would love to make a motion to table this particular
Agenda,
discussion until this agenda item and have it on the next.
Okay.
Since we didn't have a motion for the other one, I would say table both of them,
Okay,
Okay,
and I will second that.
okay.
okay, made and second, table both number 9 and number 10 on our agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Laura, we are to you and just about on time. A little ahead by moments.
For having me.
Thanks for
I'm
coming.
not sure where to be. I just stand here behind Polly
What's that?
awkwardly.
You wanna use the-
You want? Yeah, I have a presentation, a PowerPoint I'd love to share.
Yeah.
For notes.
You need to.
Plug in there. No, you do mine.
I don't got one of those.
Oh, no.
I can get
You want your forward too? Okay.
all kinds.
Have a dongle. This one's-
What voice does it have?
What's your email?
Cool.
That's
I'm not
free
sure,
L.
Trevor.
That's
got
free L
just
at
about everything.
BRWC. I only got one. It's a piece.
What is it?
I have one USB.
Oh, one USB, but then the other ones are just really slender. I don't, let's see. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of those right here.
Nice. One of those.
It's like an electronic candy man.
Well, you only get somewhere once. And realize it's not gonna work once and that. And you get the Swiss Army knife. All of them.
Get embarrassed one time.
Oh, and now that.
There we go. Now you got that one. Now you got none.
We had it.
Do you take notes on here? Well, you don't need to take notes during my presentation because you can just have it.
Everyone just look at one side.
Okay, because could I just sit and click and not have you?
Sure. I mean,
I'd rather just sit.
Slide that a little more to the middle.
Everybody.
Couple in front and just couple out here.
No, it's not in presentation mode.
Bueno?
It's
Wait,
getting
let me
there.
get there,
It's getting
yeah.
there.
Sit back here, enjoy.
Oh, fantastic.
okay, I'll let you sit here. Boards are in the order.
All right, thank you guys so much for having me. Sounds like there's some discussion already about the Great Salt Lake Basin Integrated Plan. I'm here today to talk to you about it. My name is Laura Vernon. I'm the Great Salt Lake Basin Planner with the Division of Water Resources. And this is an opportune time to talk to you guys about the plan as we have the draft work plan out for review right now. So I will get rolling. Don't hesitate to ask questions. And then those of you who are on the steering committee in this room or have anything to add about the process, you guys are all welcome to chime in as you see fit. So I'm just showing this slide. It's a slide that none of you are strangers to, I don't think, but I'm putting it up here just to illustrate that it is because of the condition that we're in with the historic low lake conditions that we are able to do this plan, this Great Salt Lake Basin Integrated Plan initiative. Setting historic lows for several years in a row has allowed us to receive funding, for better or worse, to look expansively at the water supply and demand for the Great Salt Lake Basin. But I do want to point out that this isn't a plan solely for Great Salt Lake. This isn't a Great Salt Lake plan. This is a plan for your basin, for Weaver Basin, Jordan River, Provo. It's everybody's plan. It's looking at water supply and demand issues for the entire basin. This is something that's never been done before at this scale. And so it's an exciting opportunity that was kind of prompted by Great Salt Lake elevations. So I like to look at this project as a puzzle. And if you've ever sat down to do a puzzle, super excited to lay out all your border pieces, start there and start filling in the pieces. But as you're working through the puzzle, you realize there are incomplete pieces in your puzzle. You don't have the full picture, and that's what the water picture is in the Great Salt Lake Basin. While we have some surface and groundwater information for some basins, some areas, we don't have that for others. And so we're really looking to complete the puzzle to fill in the missing pieces where we need information, identify the information that we do have about the existing water supply, and then fill in the pieces that we don't know fully. So this is my puzzle. This is Great Salt Lake Basin, 36,000 square miles, about 18 counties. So we're really striving to get all of the basins and kind of speaking the same language, comparing apples to apples when we're working on understanding the water availability in each of the basins. So rather than apples to oranges, we're looking to kind of bring everything together and look at it as one holistic basin, which I said has not been done at this scale before. So as you may have gathered, this is a pretty daunting task. And for those of us who have been involved with the planning efforts, we spent a lot of time trying to identify or articulate just exactly what the challenge is for this project. And we decided that it's going to take, to understand completely comprehensively the entire basin, we're going to need to put significant effort in terms of collaboration and vision. How do we want to see water planning in the basin look like, and then who do we involve, who has those missing pieces, and how can we all work together to answer the questions. The solutions are really complex technically and socially, and as demands continue to grow in terms of population, increasing temperature, decreasing runoff, the problem's only getting more and more challenging. And so how do we look at this, the decisions that we're making today or tomorrow as a result of this basin plan today? How do we let this management plan shape tomorrow's possibilities for water management in the basin? Kind of just to dive a little bit more into the complexity, we know that social challenges abound when we're looking and talking about water in the Great Salt Lake Basin in the West, in Utah, generally beliefs, values, things like that. Education, how much people know or don't know about the importance of Great Salt Lake, the importance of agriculture, just making people aware and having a more complete understanding of the picture of the water challenges in the basin. Fragmentation, we may have some groups or parties who feel less connected than others. Organizational, institutional challenges, and legal. What are we bound by with regard to law, policy, what your organization or institution allows? And then the challenges are further emphasized by the complexity of, well, just simply water supply. How much water do we have to work with here in the basin? How is our water management structure set up to move water? How do we manage land that will help us supply water where it needs to go? How do we quantify water? I work with the Great Salt Lake Strike Team too, and we're just talking about, if you ask one person for the inflows on a certain stretch of river, or, that gets to a certain location, we got a couple different ways to quantify how that happens, and how do we get together all on the same page so we're all talking about quantification in a similar way, or we're all using the same inflows numbers, the same evaporation numbers, things like that. And then, of course, the environmental challenges that we see, decreasing salinity on Great Salt Lake, what challenges that brings, less water to the wetlands, less water in your reaches, riparian zones up here in the basin. So in order to tackle this large problem, we knew that we couldn't do it alone. And so the timing for help and support has been fantastic. Like I said, the low lake levels really prompted this, the legislature to fund the Great Salt Lake Watershed Integrated Water Assessment, and $5 million was allocated in the 2022 legislative session. And that would allow us to develop and evaluate BMPs that may be used to provide a reliable water supply that meets water quality objectives, agricultural water objectives, accommodate for anticipated growth and economic development, and provide adequate flows to Great Salt Lake wetlands and other ecological functions. But also at the same time that the legislature funded HB 429, we saw a match, we applied for and received a U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Basin Study grant. And that is a $3 million contribution that will allow us to kind of further dive into and understand water supply and the trade and conduct a trade-off analysis to help decision makers balance water supply and demand and avoid a deterioration of agriculture and industry and ecosystems. So you kind of see how these projects are so similar. So when we developed the work plan, we kind of did a cross-check of how to meet the needs, the requirements of HB 429 and the needs of the basin study. And there is an appendices in the document if you're ever so interested to help you understand how we're doing that. These are the pieces of the puzzle. We originally called them building blocks, and they look like bubbles to me, so I call them building bubbles. But what are the things that we're looking at to ensure that we can build a resilient water supply for Great Salt Lake and the watershed? And these are some of the components that HB 429 articulates. First is water supply. How much water is there and how much will be available? What is the water demand looking like? How much do the communities need? How much do the plants and animals need? Water quality. How much water do we need to ensure adequate water quality? Watersheds. How can things like forest management or watershed restoration protect water supply and water quality? Stormwater. How does stormwater management influence Great Salt Lake? We've already taken a look at that. And then how much water does Great Salt Lake and its wetland needs to support the beneficial uses there? So these are the components. We dove into each of these questions and only found more questions, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But this is kind of an illustration of all of the stuff that has gone into the work plan. And I think this is a good illustration because it highlights the two tracks that I think there is. There's the people piece and there's the technical piece. So the people piece is the stakeholder engagement. Early on, we hired, and Andy left, but I did forget to mention, we awarded a contract to help develop the work plan, and that was to Jacobs Engineering, and their subs were Langdon. So while Langdon has been helping with the development of the watershed councils, they've also been helping us with this work plan. Yay. And then Clyde Snow and Sessions has helped with the legal and policy stuff. So so we did a situational assessment, interviewed several of you in this room perhaps, but just to kind of get an idea of what people are thinking, saying about water concerns in the watershed. We held some individual focus groups looking at kind of technical data, information, existing research that's already out there. And then we developed an advisory group and a steering committee. And these two groups are, I think, really important in this process. We have an advisory group that's comprised of state and federal folks. They're the ones that are kind of providing the sideboards for what is possible and not possible within the realm of statute, law, policy, all of those things. So members of or representatives from the Division of Wildlife Resources, water rights, Forestry, Fire and State Lands, the US Bureau of Reclamation, Army Corps of Engineers. So we've got our state and federal folks covered, and then we have a steering committee that's comprised of several of you in this room. Like I said, there are representatives with interest throughout the watershed. Connolly, Trevor, there you go. Nate and Trevor have all been participating in this process over the last 6 months. And the important part is, while they committed to helping us develop the work plan, their work is not over. We're, like Ann said, we're doing this process for the next couple of years. So I get to hang out with them some more. And then the other piece is the technical piece. And this is where we really tried to dive into what the issues were with the building blocks or bubbles that I was talking to you about, looking at the literature review, conducting interviews and workshops with the people who hold the water data, who operate the existing models that are out there for Weber Basin, Bear River, Jordan River, for example. And then one of the biggest efforts that we did was a gap analysis. So we looked at all of the questions that are out there. What is the information that we need to ensure a resilient water supply? What are the missing pieces? And so we conducted a gap analysis and had it was like 700 questions, but about 200 proposed projects that we thought could be tackled that in some way or another could help inform decision making in the basin. And then we did a prioritization of these, and then a ranking exercise and a prioritization to kind of really help flesh out which of those projects will move forward in the second phase of the basin plan. So I should say that the work plan is phase 1. We're wrapping that up now. And then phase 2 is kind of this little circle that you see on the other end. And that's really starting to nail down the decision-making efforts, the scenario planning, the collaborative efforts, as well as projects that we need to do, strategic research, policy opportunities, capacity development that will help us answer the questions and meet our goal, which is to ensure a resilient water supply for Great Salt Lake and all water uses, including people and the environment throughout the watershed. So thanks to everyone for helping wordsmith this goal. It took a lot of time and effort, but I feel confident that this is really capturing what the project is trying to do. And we're going to do it in 3 years. We know this isn't we know that people want answers about, how to save Great Salt Lake yesterday. They want the answers yesterday. They want them tomorrow. But this is a project and an initiative that we were talking about earlier today with the new deputy commissioner. This really could have been done 10 years ago to help us make decisions and suggestions today. But we need to go through this step now that we have the time and the money well, I don't know that we necessarily have the time, but we have the funds to do this. And so we're going to make our best effort to move as quickly as possible to quantify water resources, assess and validate challenges and opportunities, evaluate those options, develop and evaluate strategies and tactics, and then recommend actions that will ensure that we have this resilient water supply. And then all of the time, there are projects that we know need to be done and can be developed. So we'll be implementing those no regret solutions, and then continuing, like I said, to forge the connections, continue to come and talk to groups, reach out and help people understand what it is, the effort that we're working on. And this is kind of our it kind of looks brine shrimpy, but it's a little illustration of all of the people and the connections that are going to be involved in the process, and kind of highlights the technical work that needs to be done as well. So we'll have a central database. So all of the river basins will have their water, their data, and they will all, while they're all specific to their own river basin, they'll all be fed into the central database, and then go up to the steering committee, advisory group, water resources, and the Bureau of Reclamation who are leading this. And then Great Salt Lake Commissioner is kind of over all of this. And I'm super hopeful, well, more than hopeful, but enthusiastic about the support that the commissioner and the new deputy commissioner are giving this as a tool that will help drive, or it will help them. It was a water planning tool that will help them make decisions about water management in the basin. And so I think they're really getting behind this effort to help us understand water better in the system. And then finally, and I think very important to you guys, is this coincidentally, since we are working on river or water budgets or river for each of the river basins, we also have these new watershed councils for each of the basins that are around now. And so we really feel like this is the group that we can connect to, keep informed, and come to and ask for information. We know that there are the technical folks who have a lot of the modeling experience and data. We can bring them in here. You can reach out to them and ask them, to help with questions. But I think using this group as kind of a touchstone or a touch point throughout the next couple of years to really understand how when the projects get going, what we'll be working on, what you may be interested in, like responding to, like Ann said, if you want to respond with comments or suggest modeling scenarios. For example, when we start to do the scenario planning, let us know. We can run different scenarios for the Watershed Council. This is a really awkward looking diagram, but I think the point of this is, the basin plan is being driven by HB 429 and the basin study, but there's a ton of other work that's been going on and a ton of other activities, and we don't want to, it would be crazy if we glossed over that. We're taking a lot of that information in and integrating that into our plans. And, that includes work that the Agricultural Optimization Program is doing, the Division of Wildlife and their Utah Wildlife Action Plan. Great Salt Lake Advisory Council has done a ton of work and has been involved in identifying implications of a drying Great Salt Lake. USGS is working on groundwater studies along with UGS. And so we're just pulling in all of the data and information into that kind of central database that we were talking about with the intention of ensuring this resilient water supply. And I kind of mentioned earlier that this little sphere or circle that talks about the efforts that are coming from the work plan. This decision-making track is really the bulk of the work that's going to be happening. As you'll see in a minute, it's where the bulk of the funding is going. But central to or important components of this decision-making track is the continued involvement with the steering committee and the advisory group and the scenario planning that I was talking about. How would we like to, let's say we have an increase in population in one basin and decreasing flows in another. We have different reservoir elevations. What does that all mean for water that makes it to Great Salt Lake? So just what kind of scenario planning do we want to do? And then also developing these watershed models for the watershed itself and these river basin models. And then in addition to the decision-making track, we have the strategic research and solutions development and capacity development track. So these are all of the projects that the steering committee and the advisory group kind of identified or prioritized as projects that would help us get to, understanding the big pieces of the puzzle that will, kind of help complete the picture. The decision-making track, like I said, is the bulk of it, and that's the modeling that will be done in-house or in kind by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and by our team and others who we're working with. But that's the modeling, scenario planning stuff. But then we also have funds that we will be working on these strategic plans or strategic projects We have funding for agricultural water optimization opportunities and costs, same with M&I. Looking more at dust control and impacts of that. And then also creating this kind of central hub for Great Salt Lake data along with USGS. That is something that has been a request for people for many years, trying to, where's the one spot to go for all Great Salt Lake Basin related data. So these are the initial recommendations. These funding amounts are not set in stone. We do need to, as we're working now to kind of prioritize this phase 2, that's where the we'll be kind of hammering out the funding amounts and project timelines and scope of work. So got plenty of work ahead of us because we got like 8 different scopes of work to do, or RFPs. So you'll be hearing plenty more about those. But this is the details of how our work plan has been rolling out. We did send out an initial notice in mid-November. Candace really kicked off Candace Hassenegger, the director of the Division of Water Resources, presented to the legislature, the Natural Resources Appropriations Subcommittee, an update about the project. Tomorrow night from 6 to 8, we have an open house, and will be, it's a virtual open house. So you're all welcome to attend on YouTube and should have received an invite for that. And the review period in total, it's over 45 days, but it does end on January 8th. And then, as I mentioned, we're needing to spend some time developing the scopes of work and RFPs. So we are hoping to get everything moving for phase 2 by January. And I just wanted to close by, thinking about, or the importance of thinking about this as one community and one, we're all connected here. And I know, we're all connected in this one basin, but I think stepping back and taking a bigger picture look is how we're going to be successful in this planning effort and understanding what people's concerns are, and then kind of figuring out collectively how to live and manage and work together as water resources just become more challenging in the basin. So a shout out to the one water, one community concept, and that's all I have. Any questions? The website is at the bottom, and the link for the virtual meeting is there for tomorrow night.
Who's the deputy commissioner of the Great Salt Lake?
Tim Davis is the new commissioner, and he was the director of the Division of Water Quality, or drinking water. Thank you. And prior to that, was in Montana serving in similar roles as the state engineer and the director of the Division of Water Resources. So he's kind of done it all. Yes, he is a water guru. Yes, Trevor will be on the panel, along with Tim Davis, Tim Hawks, Marcel Shoup, Jacob Young, and then Rick Baxter from U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and Candace will be facilitating that discussion.
I have one question. This may or may not apply, but why do you think it took so long to get to this point? I mean, we've known this. I mean, you may not have the answer. I'm just. We've known this problem for such a long time, and it seems like we're just getting started on it. It seems to me.
For better or worse, I think it's the low lake levels really captivated the nation and the world, and people are like then thinking, how do we respond? How do we get all the information that we need? It took a crisis to really figure out what we need to do. So trying to take advantage of that crisis, or being opportunistic, I guess, is kind of where we're at with this project. But like I said, I wish it could have been done 10 years ago. I think many people do as well.
There was a lot of discussion a few weeks ago about a pipeline from California, and then somebody threw out, and I thought it was actually a pretty good idea, to make a connection between the Snake River and the Bear River.
The Snake River guys, they think they got all kinds of water.
I thought, well, there's a good idea.
I think part of it was the complexity of this, right?
Yep.
It took that crisis, I think, for them, put the effort behind something, because this is only the first step.
Yeah.
Because if we are to find solutions in continued drought, this at least looks at the whole watershed. But we can't find a solution that works without Idaho and Wyoming on board.
Mhm.
And that is still going to be a potentially decade long or decades long, right? Even after this is done, we say, here's what we could do to help in the dire situation years. But if everybody's not on board, it still doesn't work.
You know.
And I did
And so I think that's
present
why
to
it took
the-
this long, because it's not an easy task.
Yeah.
And so when there was plenty of water, you know, no one
Out of
cared.
sight, out of mind.
No one's gonna put in that much effort for something that's not a.
Well, it's pretty
Yeah.
daunting,
Yeah.
is how I feel most
Yeah.
days. And so, I think it was maybe brushed aside until it was like, oh my gosh, we really have to look at it this from this big picture view. So, and yeah, it's complex, like I mentioned before, socially and technically. So like now we're really biting the bullet and having to do it. And I should say, with mention to Idaho and Wyoming, I did present to the Bear River Commission 2 weeks ago, and I'm happy to keep involved, and we've been communicating with the Idaho and Wyoming folks too.
I think it's a great plan, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let me know when I can come back. If you have
Okay.
Questions.
When you've solved the problem.
I'm gonna need you guys to help with that.
That is huge.
You have the answer.
Thanks again, Laura.
Yeah.
Melissa has something to mention in our public comment period, at the round table. Go ahead.
Okay. So, I really liked your comment about the one water, one community. And wanted to let everyone know about the Bear River Partnership Confluence Symposium, January 9th and 10th in Ogden. And this happened last year. There were like 145, 150 people both days. The conservation districts are coming back. There will be people, we have Commissioner Brian Steed is the keynote speaker. And there's going to be like a lot of dynamic presentations and people from the Bear River Watershed Council, like Jeff Young is also presenting. So I can send an email with the link to register. So you repeat the dates again. The 9th and 10th.
January.
The Tuesday, Wednesday in Ogden at the Edmonds Conference Center. And the tickets are $35, and that is like two lunches. And so I'll send an email to the group with the registration.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other comments in our roundtable public comment period?
There was the sort of pertains to the discussion that we just had, or the presentation on the Great Salt Lake, but there was an article by James Cephalo with the Idaho Department of Water Resources titled Idaho and the Great Salt Lake. It was published in the Advocate. If everyone hasn't seen that, I can share that if anybody's interested.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
It's super interesting to see their perspective.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of nice that they would be willing to share that, you know?
Excellent. Prior to our conclusion, we have scheduled next meeting. Maybe first week of the session? Is that what I heard in the prior comments?
Early January. What day does the session start this?
16th, it says. 16th to the 1st of March.
Start, I guess.
And the 18th is what?
The 18th is the state watersheds council. It's the same day, so it might be.
We don't want that.
Oh, yeah, you have conflicts, Nate. And they're meeting in the afternoon, 1 to 3. Okay, not the 18th. We had a Tuesday meeting once. This Tuesday, the 23rd, work for
January 23rd.
January 23rd.
That's in the middle of the National Farm Bureau Convention. They're hosting it in Salt Lake this year.
Mm.
Well, now,
17th open, just the Wednesday before our.
Yeah,
Thinking of 18, so 17th.
Wednesday the 17th.
I have a commitment that day.
16?
Schedule.
wow.
Holly doesn't want to have dogs.
Yeah. My schedule's probably the most open, so.
What about the 18th?
The 18th was the state watershed council meeting from 1 to 3.
Could we do a morning meeting that day?
You can do a morning virtual maybe, and people can be wherever and.
Might be a good
test wherever they need to get.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not trying to bail out here, but Thursdays are actually terrible during the session for my day job. I need to.
Okay,
Thursday.
I agree, actually.
for you too. Okay. Good to hear. Any other proposed dates?
Tuesday, 16th?
Tuesday, the 16th, the day of the opening of the session?
Or is that too soon?
Well, I don't think we'll
Trevor
really see
had-
anything get flushed out until, like, we wouldn't have any surprise bills available for discussion until that second week, I don't think, so the 22nd through the 26th. So any day really that first week is just as good as any other,
Okay.
if we want to do it right at the start of the sessions.
Do we want to
Anyone who's
do
been holding,
Tuesday, the
close to the
16th, a virtual meeting?
Why do we want to
The
maybe
ones that really controversial.
wait till a little further in the session?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an opinion.
Madam Chair, what was your question?
Carl wondered if we wanted to wait till further in the session. What's the advantage of right at the beginning, us meeting? Versus like the 30th.
Might give us more to meet about, whether we do virtually or whatever.
That was
well, and they have a lot of stuff they do right at the beginning of the session that takes time. Don't they do the budget before
Yeah,
they
the
get
budget
into?
is the first thing they do.
So it might be good
First
to,
week, that's all they do. Well, unless there's committee bills, if there's committee bills, they're unanimous and they've sailed through interim, they may pass some of those very quickly in the first week, but it's usually.
because they did, was it this session, the session before they did the budget, and then they did what they called Water Week, which where we all drowned. But we want to see everything out there, but 30th is good. Still got plenty of session left.
virtual in person. What's the feeling?
What did you say, the 30th?
Yeah.
Yeah, 30th. January
that.
30th.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Okay.
If we do it virtually, though, you just have to make sure that there'll be a lot of feelings because we're discussing bills. And you just have to make sure that if you want to be heard, we can't see your face like we can in this situation. We can't see you cringing over there. So you need to just make sure you effectively communicate. So if we get a subcommittee that's gonna go back and give some feedback on this, that, or the other, clear that we need to do that.
If it's not a terrible roadblock, I prefer in person. But I don't know what your opinions are.
Just do it like we have been in person with the virtual option. If
Yeah.
People say they want it. we can do it.
Right? Do we need to have a motion and pass our next meeting schedule? Technically, I can,
Yeah, you can just set up. and then the motion will set it.
yeah.
They're not set days.
Set it and forget it.
Okay, as of now, our next meeting is January 30th. It's a Tuesday at 2 o'clock here in the Bear River Conservancy offices.
Good.
Okay, and all we need is a motion to adjourn. Doesn't need a second. Thank you. We finished before 4. I didn't do math right.